Actually, it is the big brands only who are sincerely working towards CSR. But if you see a large chunk of the middle level corporates, they circumvent or they try to find out ways and means how they will not contribute towards CSR.
From CSR, from just philanthropic work, it has now moved into shared value creation. Yes. It has moved into what is the interest, sustainability of their business.
I think that Tata, they cross 2%, they don't stick to 2%.
Yeah, they
I
don't
think they
bother.
do 4 to 5% if you take everything together.
Yes.
They dump the money to the NGO, they show that. Just ticking the box. So just fulfilling the requirements of the government.
Hope your funders are not listening to this. They'll stop your funding.
Hi, welcome to RoundTable Central, hosted by BrandStory. So today we are here to discuss on CSR, Impact Beyond Compliance. I'm Shubankar. I'm a senior consultant with the government of Karnataka. I've worked on multiple projects with multiple governments. So I've been in the development ecosystem for nearly half a decade now. Recently, we've also started a new firm called Paramanand, which deals with CSR consulting. So today we have a great panel here. So starting with our guests, Mr. Baskaran, he's the CEO of Vidyaranya. We have Swati with us, who's a senior CSR consultant. We have Mr. Benedict with us. He's the editor of Sustainability Next and the founder of Greenlit International.
Green
Literature Festival. And we have Mr. Pranjit, who's the global head of Heifer International, the investment wing. Yeah, they'll go ahead and introduce themselves.
I am Baskaran from Vidyaranya. Very happy to be a part of this discussion, and it's very quite interesting and very needful for the NGOs because we are the receivers, and definitely this discussion will help us to develop ourselves and to improve ourselves, to support the people with whom we are working. Definitely. So this definitely it will be a fruitful one for us particularly. Thank you.
So, hi, I have been working in the development sector for the past 24 years. And my focus area has been climate change and disaster risk reduction. So I worked with the UN agencies, and then of course having my own social startup, which I thought I must mention to you because we impacted 11% of the total population of the country through a model that I had given at Davos in Switzerland. And
Wonderful.
Yes, so that is something which could address the loopholes where we built upon, and our work was primarily we started with Mata Vaishno Devi, and that became the model, that became the experimental ground through which we then replicated it in different places across the country. So that's what we work upon. But right now I'm doing a lot of work on CSR and sustainability, especially focusing on how we can implement sustainability without the big jargons which you hear all around. So that's what I do. So yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi.
Benedict.
Thanks to BrandStory for inviting me. I think I'm the odd man out here. I'm not in the CSR field when it practice or whatever, but we do publish articles on CSR and largely on the impact of CSR. We get the PR reaches out to publish their CSR stories, and most of the time I coach them how to write their CSR stories better. So I published this magazine called Sustainability Next. It's 12 years old. The mission of this magazine is to drive sustainability thinking. So just like we had design thinking earlier and quality thinking, and I think this is the era of sustainability thinking, and it's for everybody. Everybody should have sustainability thinking, students, professionals, startups. So that's our mission. Thank you. More later.
Yeah, absolutely. Pranjit, please.
Thank you, and thank you to Brand for inviting us. Like I said, I represent Heifer International. Well, it's over 80 years. It's a very old organization. Been working around 19 countries. And in India, actually, Heifer came in quite some time ago during the milk revolution.
Oh, okay.
The Jersey cow. So it started with that. Over the years, we have evolved, right? So, and we have worked towards rural livelihood, strengthening rural livelihood, and our focus has always been the smallholder farmers, especially women. And when we talk about smallholder women farmers, you can name it, all the development needs. So with a mission to alleviate poverty and hunger while caring for the earth, because environment is one of the key pieces. They're the most vulnerable people we are working for and working with. I represent the impact investment arm of Heifer International. So what we do is we invest alongside the program we work with to facilitate the marketplace to come in, so that we can form an inclusive ecosystem where our farmers are a part. Right? And that's the role we play. And that's where we have seen over the years how it helps us to leverage corporate interest, and the private sector interest, the institution interest, because the program which we do, that is a kind of TA for the investment.
Okay.
Because you bring in smallholder farmers, aggregate them into cooperatives and so on and so forth.
Right.
So more for our discussion later, but thank you again. Very interesting to be here.
Thank you for all coming. Let's get started. So CSR has evolved over the years, right? So what do you think businesses are doing differently now to sort of adapt to these changes? And how are they modifying their CSR strategy as part of their whole business strategy? So any opinions on that?
Actually, you see, Government of India has made 2% mandatory for CSR spent. But this is where, there is a lot of things which is happening. Actually, it is the big brands only who are sincerely working towards CSR. But if you see, a large chunk of the middle level corporates, they circumvent or they try to find out ways and means how they will not contribute towards CSR. What intrigues me is that today we have the UN SDGs and the whole world. In fact, when we had the G20 recently, it was found that by 2030, we are not even near the quarter mark, forget the half mark, okay? What intrigues me is that, let's take India, let's not talk about the world. Here we have a solid system. The Corporate Affairs Ministry has made 2% compulsory. However, if we actually sincerely work towards contributing, pick up any goal, like let it be poverty, let it be hunger, let it be empowerment, let it be anything. So if we actually work that little bit of it, we will inch closer towards filling the gap in the UN SDGs.
Hello.
I feel the corporates need to be, especially the middle range corporates, they also need to be sincere in their approach.
Yeah.
If they want to say that they do not want to spend 2% of the spent for corporate, for CSR activities, let them even do 1%. But believe me, if we even do that little bit of it, we surely as a country would move much faster towards achieving the UN SDGs. So yes, there is, I don't know how we should be maybe as we evolve in our discussion right now, that maybe the government could think of a way where even 0.1% or 1% of contribution by a corporate could be rewarded.
Right. So, but do you think large businesses, like you said, the large corporates,
Yes.
they are sort of working towards CSR,
Yes.
right? So, what is it that they are doing differently now that the compliance has come in? So, how are they sort of altering their overall business strategy? So,
You see, if you take an example of the Tata Group, or take ITC, take Godrej. So these are the corporates. For the Tata Group, it's a totally different ball game altogether. Their community services first, and then comes the business. It's just the opposite for them. ITC also does great
Yeah.
deal of work. So if I will find out, again, on the other hand, you see there are corporates like, say, the foreign corporates who are there, like IKEA. They have a foundation through which they are operating. But if you see the Tata Group, they are uniquely placed. The trust is doing separate, which controls Tata Sons, of course. But each of the Tata holdings, they are also having their own CSR. So what a wonderful philosophy it could be that, they are serving the community from where also they are having business interests. But first is the community, first is the welfare of the people. So what they are doing differently is, I think, their way of thinking. In India, we still are, there is a poverty line which is still there to be filling the gap. So I feel the corporates need to be emulating maybe these bigger corporates, or maybe they don't have the bandwidth that they could emulate them. We don't know about it. So, but sincerity is something probably we need to inculcate even in the middle
I
range
think
of.
it's well rewarded.
Yes,
The Tata
yes.
brand in itself stands
Correct.
for that. So, yeah,
Yes.
I think that
point
Tata,
taken.
they cross 2%. They don't stick to 2%.
Yeah, they
I
don't
think they
bother.
do 4 to 5%. If you take everything
Yes,
together,
correct, correct.
it comes naturally to them. I think.
Yes.
And I think Ratan Tata himself was a model in that sense. So,
It's a
him as a
cultural
person.
shift, I feel. It's a cultural shift.
Pranjit, what about you? What do you think?
So, and just taking it from what she said, I think over the years, CSR has grown, evolved, right? And like she mentioned, the larger corporates will probably show them the way, because where the rest one are still finding out the right way of doing it. And the mandate says you will have to have a CSR body which will. But there are certain organizations, multinationals, and the larger ones who are already doing CSR. For them, it was more than that. Like you mentioned, it was more sustainability. Now ESG is coming in. How to measure all of that? So that is related to their business. From CSR, from just philanthropic work, it has now moved into shared value creation.
Yes.
It has moved into what is the interest, what is the sustainability of their business. Some even goes into their supply chain, if that becomes transparent, if that is sustainable. So it has a long journey to go. Don't get me wrong, but we have also traveled a good distance, and we have seen in our programs across the globe, including India, we see there is an interest from the corporate that how they would want to clean their own supply chain. But there are challenges as well. Like I said, if you see the both end, you have smallholder farmers. And like we were discussing earlier, regenerative ag will require 50,000 acres of land. Our farmer had barely one. Right? So they would, even if you count them at a cooperative level, they will have what, 1,000? You need 50 of them. You need a PEX body. You need the middle players to come in, some innovation to come in, which will make sense for them and which will also help the corporates to report, because they have their mandatory reporting as well, right? So how will they report? So we have to find, and that's the role we play in between, how we can connect the two, the resources and the needs. We have worked in many of these green investment, green funds. The scale of operation they need to report back is enormous. I mean, when we work across the 3 states in India, but these are all smallholder farmers. You put them all together, they'll barely make anything the scale of operation they would need, how much of plantation you would. But Having said that, the relevance and the importance is also there, because these we are talking about are the vulnerable lots. They need to adapt the good practices for the corporate to be able to report. Probably in a later discussion, we'll probably go into how do we monitor and report on that, would be another question. But yes, to answer a long answer to a short question, is that it has evolved over time, and it is evolving. It's a long way to go. I'm positive about it. There are changes, there are challenges, just that the climate change faster than how fast we are adopting. That's a risk we need to figure out.
So if you would see, I mean, I always, I'm sold out to Mr. Paul Polman's Net Positive, and how he got Unilever turned around with his USLP, or, you know, it is like, I mean, he just changed the entire culture of the corporate.
And also the narrative. that
Yes,
sort
the
of surrounds it.
narrative. Unilever was totally down and out, and how he turned around, making sustainability as the centerpiece around which everything is, you know, evolving. So that is, I wish USLP as a model which is so replicable can be done, and it is very
What is
replicable.
USLP?
It is Unilever's, it is called, USLP is the unique selling, no. A sustainable living plan, Unilever's sustainable living plan. Yeah, so that is a model which Mr. Paul Polman did, and it is in his book Net Positive, and I had the fortune to interact with him, you know, and so I asked him, so how could you do all these things? He changed the entire system, you know.
He's gotten into trouble
Really?
recently.
Really? Okay.
So, and by the way, Unilever closed their CSR department because it was not
Because-
needed. No, it was not needed.
Yes, because of
Sustainability
sustainability.
overtook,
Yes.
CSR.
So what he just said, that, you know, sustainability, so under sustainability comes CSR and many other things. And you also mentioned one more thing about compliances, like, you know, so compliances is nothing. It's, you may get the GRI rating, they are just matrices. But, you know, if you see the work, like you're doing the work across the, so that will help you fill up the metrics.
No, it's not just that. Like when we sort of talk about compliance, also, it's just something on paper, right? Beyond
Absolutely.
that, business strategy is more about narrative, brand building, all of that, and sustainability, like she was saying, is one key factor that is sort of driving all of this. Benedict, what do you think, given your experience with the comm space, how are businesses trying to sort of narrativize their CSR actions and commitments?
Okay, so to begin with, I found this very interesting fact, which is that the CSR law came into effect on April 1st. 2014,
Yeah.
April 1st. So I was reading this book by Meena Raghunathan. She's done a really good book called Doing Good, Navigating the CSR Maze. So I reviewed the book for Sustainability Next. So she asks, who's the government trying to fool? Since it was launched on that day. So are they fooling the companies? Because your companies are forced to part with their 2% profit. As it is, most companies don't make that much money. And are they trying to fool the NGOs? Because NGOs, as it is, have difficult days to implement things, and they're forced to take on projects and implement it in a short budget, and the stringency of the law that monitors them is really hard. And are they trying to fool people? So people are being fooled all the time. so that's the on a lighter vein. So coming to communication, I'll come to that. Let me respond to Swati's point about large corporates comply, middle corporates don't. I don't agree at all. Large corporates have more ability to circumvent.
Really?
Yes. So the middle, there's nothing like middle and large. Who, if you want to fool, you can fool. But I think the rules, CSR rules are very stringent, irrationally stringent. And it's so lax on all other laws. IT law here, it's very lax. But see, nobody knows why is it so stringent. And so stringent on the NGOs because they cannot spend more than 5% on their administrative cost, which also means that they cannot hire quality people.
Just a couple of things there. So project management, there is room for project management within the CSR law. So if the company is implementing the CSR project, they're free to hire a PMU. It can be a for-profit organization also, but I think there is room for that. But like you said, administrative expenses are capped at 5%.
5%, which is very, very low. I think even 10% is low, but it's a need for a change there. And one really horrifying fact is that CSR comes under GST. Yeah, I mean, not everything, but the GST is levied on CSR. I mean, that's horrendous. So that's why I started with this fooling point that we are still really long way to go. And the biggest quote unquote fraud is that there was this rule that if companies still have money left, not spent, they should be put into PM CARES fund, and the PM CARES fund is not audited. It's not audited. So last 4 years, especially it came up during the COVID, how much money the corporates have put into PM CARES fund, nobody knows. And because of this pressure, many companies set aside some money. They're forced indirectly to set aside so that they contribute to the...
It actually doesn't make sense, right? Because you're supposed to spend this amount before 31st of March. Your books are not closed by 31st of March. So you don't know what your profit is going to be for that year. You're made to sort of spend 2% of your average profits over the last 3 years. So it does bring in that sense of, pressure to sort of set aside some money and do something with it. So
coming back, if these are the legalities and the technicalities which we are talking about, but if we see around, I feel that, I don't know, I have these lofty ideas about, that how we can actually bring in change. How can actually, if there is something, it actually doesn't take much of money. Like when I had my little social startup, I understood that the administrative costs were always whenever I used to ask for funds, they will ask me the administrative cost, and I soon realized that they are right in their way. Okay, a high administrative cost, means we are spending too much on other things. But what I told to my sponsors, I said, look, my fees are this much and my colleagues' fees would be higher than what is the market rate. This is the time frame, this is the exit strategy. And then they fell online. They said yes. And I said, and I will not take your payment till I don't deliver. Once I told them this line, they were very much at ease. It became opposite actually. Here we did in Karnataka. So it was the BIA, the Bidadi Industrial Association, which supported me, and it was, I never had to, be, what should I tell you? I never had to be on the back foot about explaining because I had worked on the administrative expenditure.
But I think the point is not the client doesn't put pressure, it's the rule, the government, when they auditing.
When we talk about the administrative expense, right? It is non-project administrative cost that is to be capped at 5%. So for example, if I have to give a simple example, let's say we're talking about a lake rejuvenation program. So in the lake rejuvenation program itself, there are some administrative expenses in the sense that there's some project planning that goes into it. That is not really a part of this 5% cap. So this 5% cap is excluding that. So part of your administrative expenses. So that is where there's room to sort of.
But you know, in my experience, I saw the government coming out and out to support me, and they really liked the work which we did. So the point I'm trying to make is that if we move aside from the administrative costs, from the legalities of it, I feel, I mean, I'm a positive person. I feel that, you know, if you are thinking that I want to do this work and this is my approach, I think people come together to help you to reach that little change which you would like to do. So
I think impact sort of drives
Yes.
the support
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
So,
And political parties may be of any hue and color, that is non-relevant. Everybody wants that, you know, whichever party is in power, they want how much, they also have to show to the people, you know. So when people like us are coming forward and doing some work, it also adds to their CV. It's not only our CV.
no, I'll come to that. I think I have a couple of questions there.
Ah.
But yeah, Bhaskar, so just sort of taking off from where she left off, right? So impact drives contribution in terms of donations, in terms of the government supporting you, in terms of procedures and all of that. So how has your experience been, given that you've been working for so long in this particular space, right?
Correct. So, for years, I'm happy to share that for years, the corporate social responsibility has been a checkbox exercise for many companies, and it's like something fulfill the regulatory requirements of the government or other things, and just to boost their public image and public relations, or enhance their brand image. This is what is happening, and many companies, they still see that the CSR as philanthropic, and it is just donating for the causes or something, you know, building the schools or something like that. But we feel that it lacks sustainability. They don't think about it. Just they support the causes and forget about it. And we feel that it is not a charity. It should have some shared values, but it's missing in the corporate social responsibilities. And also, and the project design, you know, just customer and the company's relations, and the stakeholders like beneficiaries themselves, they are not present in the projection or project, whatever they submit or accept by the companies. So totally the stakeholders, particularly beneficiaries, are missing. They should be a part of that any plan.
Correct.
That is always
Correct.
To sort of dwell on that point, right? So what is the process like when you sort of reach out to a donor? How when you build a proposal for a particular project, or they sort of are more keen to fund you into your corpus fund, like, so what is it like?
It is not corpus fund. I'm talking about submitting the plan itself. The beneficiaries, the stakeholders should be a part of the planning process.
Correct. What he
That
means
is
to
what
say.
we can see. We want to measure the impact.
Correct.
But there is a missing. When they go, just to have a tick box, and nothing is. So
what he's telling is when they're giving the funds also, they're giving a plan to them, they should be involved in that plan.
Correct.
Then their ownership will come. So
it's not a partnership process. It's just like they give you the funds and then they're like, you do it. We're not.
Hope your funders are not listening to this. They'll stop your funding. I'm just joking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let the companies also think about it, how they can accept it, because they're investing so much of money. That should reach to the people. That's what our concern.
Absolutely. No, I think just to sort of build from there, right? So impact assessment is a thing with large corporates. So monitoring, evaluation, and learning frameworks are set up for larger corporates. They sort of look at the proposal that is coming in from the implementation partner, then they sort of do baseline studies and all of that.
So our experience is totally MEL, no? Monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So totally missing. Just give the money, and they say that okay, you give the EC, you
But
give
do
the
you know
report.
why this is happening?
That's what we want. The company should think of
They will
while
not do.
investing money, they should also incorporate this kind of elements so that they can see that.
Also, I think there are a couple of problems that we need to address, right? For an MEL system to be set up, the partners need to be involved from the starting itself. So they need to do a
It
baseline.
should be part of the project itself, the component, one of the components, and that's how we can see that impact, not input. Only they will have to measure the impact of the things, how the people are, how the changes happen, how the sustainability happen.
When
That
it comes,
should be.
connecting with that point, communicating, right? So the government looks at the numbers and not the quality of the numbers, quantitative. So, and even there's been a demand to change this rule that you have to tell impact numbers every year. Whereas many of these projects are ongoing projects. It takes at least 3 years, 5 years for it to show results. So if you are forced to say annual, what is it, numbers, then they have to fudge the numbers. So there's a lot of practical thinking has to go into reforming, amending, and make it easy to implement. Right now, it is like headmaster sitting with a ruler and saying, do this, do this. So that approach doesn't work.
But you know what?
I think I want to ask one question to Pranjit. So, since they are doing this already, since you're in the impact investment space, right? I don't think you guys sort of invest without actually throwing some or putting in some effort for impact measurement. So, what is your process like? How do you guys sort of do it so that others can replicate?
Thank you for asking. And in fact, since I got a chance, I wanted to add to his point as well. See, if we compare from what it was before the entire CSR sustainability came up, this is a better place to be. There's a long way to go. There are a lot of things to happen. And we knew it has to happen because the place, if you look at the ground where we work, it's very complex. It's not a complicated problem. It's a complex problem. Everything changes. No matter how much investment you put into a framework of monitoring that, it will change. It will not capture everything because one bad harvest, everything is changed. One bad season. So, and that's what we need to incorporate into the MEL system, in the MEL system, that how will it keep on evolving with the ground? It's not easy because everybody has something to report. The corporate giving money, they need to report back to someone. The department in the corporation who is managing that has to report to somebody else, right? Everybody has to report. And once they set up into a certain format of these are the outcomes we will report on, the outcomes are changed. They're not relevant anymore, right? So how long does it take? And we are talking about a complex problem. Even in very sophisticated companies, it breaks down. We are talking about and therefore, and I totally agree, that's what we ensure. We want to make it that our farmers need to be a part of the solution while making the solution for them, right? So, and therefore, that is not easy. That's not, you go to one village, it changes. One village to another village, the demand changes, the requirement, the contextualize. How do you bring all of, and that's where our role comes. How can we aggregate all of this and commit something to them? And that's where we have invested a lot on the MERL system, we call it. Okay.
What system?
MERL, same, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So what we do is we pick up, we try to get, even that's now evolving, we try to get a sustainable living income, globally living wage of that area. That's where we engage the farmer and the implementing agency, everybody and the stakeholders. What should be that income that can give the household a dignified life? We cannot get that income. But what is that income, right? And what is the current income? So then we measure ourselves that how much are we contributing in bridging the gap. And when we try to engage with a corporate, like for we try to bring them in this journey. The benefit of engaging with a corporate over engaging with an institution is that we are not responding to RFP. There is scope of co-creation, right? In an RFP, you are answering questions. Here, there is scope of co-creation if the project is big, 5 years, so on. Larger corporates. Smaller ones, they do not have the bandwidth. They do not know the profit after tax will be keep on coming like this, or they will probably have to cut short. So there are challenges. I'm not denying that. I acknowledge that. But that's where you get this type of scope of co-creating the MERL system, the reporting system, the MEL system, how we will keep on informing the communication systems as well. In terms of our investments, when we try to look at our investments, is mostly to facilitate an engagement of the system player with our farmers, and so that the others can crowd in. Now, when we do that, we have the advantage of working in our program. So we already know the farmer, we know how they will be, the cooperative, we know who will be taking the loan, how they'll be using the loan, and how they will repay the loan. Therefore, the repayment rate is the default rate is less than 1%, because there is social pressure. One farmer in an SHG makes a bad loan, the entire SHG do not get the co-op. And if you look at our skin in the game, we get an investor or we invest in a cooperative and the cooperative defaults. For the investor, it is just the loss of that investment amount, $100,000. Can you imagine the loss? We have invested all the money in the program to make that cooperative investable in the first place. Now it is not bankable anymore. So the impact reporting is very, very critical for us. And that is at 2 levels. Just 10 more seconds on that. One at the farm level, how it is impacting the family, the household, the farmer, and another at the enterprise level, either be it a cooperative or SME you invest in. How are they profitable? Because if they are not, then this is going to last only till you keep on putting money. Otherwise, it will never be sustainable. They will not be able to bring in anybody else, or it will become sustainable. So if we can ensure that the SME you invest in or engage in, or the cooperative engage in, that's profitable and the farmer is profitable, then others come in. And it's not easy. It requires patient capital, it requires a lot of things. It requires time. They will default, but they will not give up. They will eventually come back.
Yeah, makes sense. Very interesting.
Our other expenses, many companies, they give like a one-time grant. So what is the impact it will create? It should be, we want the long-term income, outcomes. But they don't think, they just to fulfill the regulatory this thing. As we had discussed, March 31st will outcome. They dump the money to the NGO, they show that. Just ticking the box. So just fulfilling the requirements of the government. But what is the meaning of just dumping somewhere? And they don't know whether the organization is capable or whether they are able to implement or execute properly, or to reach the real beneficiaries.
That's true.
This is all missing. So let the companies, because the hard-earned money, let it go to the real changes in our community. That's what we are.
He's right. You know why this happens? Like what he's telling, that often the CSR heads who are sitting are the wrong hires. Let me put it to you very correctly.
Very correct. Very genuine.
They are HR department.
Yes.
Somebody from sales, somebody from somewhere has walked in, and they will say, because I have been facing interviews. So when they ask me a question, I look at their face. What are they even talking? Do they even know what they're talking? Because you see, and you raised a point, it's a complex. Believe me, as easy as it may sound, that the social sector, anybody at any point of your time and life, you can walk when you are totally jobless and you just, I'm doing some social work. It is not that simple. It's, you are dealing with human beings. The complexities are very, it changes every second. You do not know what went wrong, what happened to the things. So it is, I feel that approach needs to be changing. For heaven's sake, if you're whatever little, like he's raised a question point, and both of them, they are, as an NGO, I know what you're talking about. Correct. This is exactly where I was working. This is exactly they were doing. Month end, and the COS were, just give it to them. Just give the money to them. Arey Baba, they haven't done the work. And the amount has to be just given. You know, we don't care. Just give us a report. That's it. We are not interested beyond that. Now you see, look at the gap which is happening. Whereas there are genuine people who are bringing, they will not ask for such great amounts. They are actually doing the work and they are bringing the impact. But so this is happening because the corporates are treating CSR as something which is just get it fulfilled, just get it done.
And
Get it
adding
done.
to that, the consultants are increasing, number of consultants
Yes.
reaching the companies.
Because
They
the
don't know
CSR
anything
head
about-
is unable
and
to
the CSR
do.
one person they know, they connect with the, I'll dump the money.
That's
So
how it
this
is.
kind of things, loopholes.
And
It's
well,
very
just
bad.
add one example to that. And thank you for mentioning about the complexity. We need some innovation in the reporting system, something which is flexible. I'll give you one example, and it's not from India, and forgive me for that. This was in Eldoret, Kenya. We have a big dairy project. Everybody runs out there. Eldoret in Kenya. So it's a beautiful place. Everybody goes there to run. So everybody, almost the public transport is running. Everybody fit and run. So we have a poultry project also there. And we have dairy project and that's working, but we also have a poultry project. And my question was to the cooperative, why are you supporting poultry again? Everybody wants milk. He said, because our athlete needs milk. I said, good. Why are we doing poultry? They said, see, the thing is, it's a male-dominated society, right? A patriarchal society. So the first milk of the day goes to the men of the household. After that, he doesn't care. It's for the woman. She can consume, she can give it to the family, she can sell it, do whatever. I said, okay. Still not answering my question. So I said, we give them training so that they improve the milk production after the second, after the first. First one anyways comes on after that. I said, okay. Now, if they do not have poultry, then they will not sell the milk to us. They will consume it at home because she is also the nutritional gatekeeper of the house. She needs the protein for her children, for her household. So we do poultry to supplement that protein so that she can sell the milk to the cooperative so that our athletes can get milk. I said, how am I going to capture this in my monitoring plan? Can you tell me? So can you see the link? That's why it's a complex problem and it requires empowerment. She has a decision-making power now because no matter which country where you go, nutritional gatekeepers are most often the women of the household.
So it requires very complex research methodology to be put in place, right? Like when we talk about the MEL framework, so you need a lot of ground intelligence, you need people there. So that in itself ends up becoming a chunk of your expenditure as a CSR expenditure. So that is where I think the law also sort of needs to be reformed a little bit. So here in India, when we talk about the MEL framework itself, right? Like when we're talking about impact assessments. So there is some law, I'm not very sure, but for projects, for companies which have CSR outlays of about 10 crores in a year, and if they have like a single project outlay of more than 1 crore, then it is mandatory for them to sort of do an impact assessment. But your total impact assessment cost is capped at 50 lakhs.
There you go.
So that is what, like not even 10% of your overall CSR outlay in the year. So that doesn't make sense, right? Then how will you actually capture the impact that you're trying to sort of generate? So it's a problem. Yeah.
As you was telling, that is a complex problem. That's what the NGOs are required, or somebody, the external support is required. But put the project stakeholders, the beneficiaries first. They know how to solve it. So instead of you give your own solution,
Yes.
the people themselves will solve it.
Yes. Yes.
So put the money to there, give to them. Whatever.
Yeah, like exactly.
But we are lacking that. So I give on behalf of the people, I give my ideas. It doesn't work. But let the people be a forefront in planning, and definitely it will be solved. Instead of 10 crores.
Boils down to a bureaucratic approach to how this is designed. The whole CSR is designed is a very bureaucratic approach. So maybe they should have had, or they can now still have few more consultants or people who have ground level experience.
You know, I just mentioned to you that through my social startup, we impacted 11% of the population. So imagine the numbers. Do you know how, even I did not know it was 11%. Actually, in a presentation, when my startup was being launch padded at IIM Bangalore, it was there, this number came when I was stating this is what has happened.
But
So
what was the project?
yes, that's what I was telling, and
Yeah,
how it is, this is something important. So what we did is so I was working on, and I'm still doing that, on disaster risk reduction, right? We picked up two components. One is sustainability, and one is actually giving the hands-on basic life-saving skills to the people, right?
Okay.
What we did is a very simple thing. Normally, the state would give a contract to somebody, prepare the state disaster management plan for us, give it to us. We said, no, we'll not prepare your plan. What we did, so for example, this state or any state, pick up the state. We asked them, who are your stakeholders? Okay, say it is the panchayat, say it is the community. Community doesn't mean anybody standing in the road and doing things. No, the school children. Then, okay, we said, fine, now we are going to go over there and do a risk assessment. We will talk to the people, say in village X, okay, and find out what are your vulnerabilities. Okay, somebody will say earthquake, somebody will say landslide, somebody. But then within that, we found in that particular, there's snake bites. So what we started capturing those points. This is something important for you, what we did.
Yeah.
And then we made that assessment. Based on that assessment, our module became very hands-on. We knew we are going to deal with adult population whose attention span is not more than 3 minutes. Okay. So our module became very hands-on. The training became so hands-on to them, it brought instant empowerment. So for example, if I will make you lie down over here and I'll tell him, now you pick him up, and he is unconscious. How will you pick him up? We'll say, call somebody, pick up the stretcher. I'll say, no, you do it. You do it. There's nothing. That is where we told them, this is how you pick up that person yourself. No need of calling anybody else. That instant empowerment which came to them, that is what caught the attention. Now coming to the sustainability part, how do we sustain this project? We created master trainers over there because we are not going to come back over there. That pool of master trainers which we got over there, they are the ones who are carrying it forth. And the third thing, which was most important, was that we had a very clear monitoring, evaluation, and exit strategy. Okay.
Exactly.
What we did is, we did the monitoring and evaluation over there. We understood, so the master trainers are there. Hand holding is only for 6 months. I mean, I'm not going to spend my time over there so the master trainers are there. In between, we will be called and I will be paid for that. It's not free. So I'll come there. I will ask, this is my fee. We came and we saw that, okay, these are the master trainers who are doing a fantastic job. There is improvement, skill improvement happening, but now the state takes over or we have handed them over to the government back. That this is the pool of master trainers. Now you improve upon them and then they create further master trainers. This is how we did the work over there.
Wonderful. So just to sort of dwell on that. So how were you funded here?
So what we did is when I presented this model, it was one of the ex-chief secretaries of Karnataka to Mr. Subhash Khuntia. May I take his name? So I presented him. I said, sir, you give me a chance and you see what I'm doing. So we did that. And so when I was giving a lecture in LBSNA, so there, the serving district magistrates were there. So one of them was there and she told me that come and do it in my district, pilot it. And then what we did, I said, so, but we need the fund. The good people will not come. They have to run their families, their households. How do you think it's going to be? So then the corporates came in. So there were several corporates. Bosch was there, Toyota was there, Gale was there, many were there. So we said that what you do is, you give as per your convenience, but this is my total amount. And I said, this is our fee, no compromise on this, because I know people will not give, 7 or 8 days. And We gave the training in 8 days, covering 2,000 people. Imagine the precision in which we are working, the precision, the way in which, and the impact measurement was happening then and there, you know. So when I created this many people and we are doing the mock drills over there, and then I'm seeing that the master trainers are also created and they are equipped over there with uniform. We told the government, now you do these things. This is the government is showcasing. Ramnagara district has the district, the disaster management task force ready. So how beautiful it looks to the government, to the district, and for us to, yeah.
So just to sort of take off from where she left, right? So this adds a lot of good PR for both the government as well as the funding partners for the corporates. So again, for them to be this interested, it is built on consumer preferences, right? And the stakeholders are involved. So they are your consumers, they are your investors. So it is necessary and it is important for businesses to communicate their CSR commitments better. So what do you think they should do? Like, because this is a beautiful project that they've sort of done, but in spite of that, the awareness or the communication around this has not been what it should have. So yeah, any inputs on that?
Yeah. So firstly, they have to hire a PR agency. Usually they have a PR agency, but again, it's on the lowest court, that kind of a thing, L1. And they need people, they need storytellers. Because why I say this is, I get press releases of all these companies about their CSR. It's very just numbers, just five paragraphs. We did this, we did this, we did this. So many a time because my interest to do a better story, I call them back and speak to them and get stuff out of that and do a story. Whereas they should have done that by themselves. So the companies may have to pay a little better, more to get communication experts or to tell a better story. So that is firstly. So once you tell a story, where do you publish? So the newspapers today are not very...
not the preferred mode.
Yeah, so people don't read newspapers much, and then they have a size 200 or 300 words, 400 word thing. And some newspapers will want money for that.
Correct.
So, but thanks to social media, so you can tell your stories well. And if the story is good with good pictures, you can do amazing job, especially on Insta and LinkedIn if you want a corporate connect. So I think there's a need for a major enhancement of the communication talent and pay for it. So they may have to set aside maybe a 5% or 10% extra to pay for better communication talent.
So that also should be a part of the program in itself. So then it actually adds more value.
Yeah. So just additional point to that. So today it's PR that's doing it. I think we need to rebrand that or call it as sustainability communication. So there's a lot of difference between the two. So, and I'm trying to get into that space.
Again, branding.
Yeah, branding. I'm trying to get into that space. It's easy, there's a lot of things to be told, but who will pay you for that? So that is a challenge.
Adding to that, the CSR group in the companies, they need to be trained. They just come and they select what. They don't know what is the causes, why it is required, why this organization is, everything. They are not just one of the employees, they have to recommend. That's why that
there's a gap in terms of identification of the right implementation partners.
Right. They also should know what are the elements is required to choose.
Just to sort of, I think there's a gap here, right? the major donors, they're not really planning their CSR expenditure with a particular goal in mind.
Absolutely.
So that is where I think there's a need for better planning around a particular goal, and then identifying the implementation partners who are capable of doing it. So what's your...
I feel number one, the corporates need to change their strategy. Number one, in hiring the CSR head, it should not be based on DEI. It shouldn't be based on filling up the post for the sake of it. That is where things go wrong, because as is mentioned, they don't have ownership. The plan is being made, program has been decided, but the implementing partner is not aware of it. Some money is being given. So what we are getting is, the result is the impact not happening as desired in the ground. Whereas we actually do not need that great amount of money if we plan it better. That is one. And the second part of your question, so suppose do not pick up many goals. I mean, this is something which I advise any corporate. Do not pick up so many goals. Health education seems to be the common ground where everybody wants to speak. But where is our health and where is our education? What has happened if everybody has the same goal? So let us just focus on, say, anyone. No need to make your universe so broad. Just keep it limited, but make an impact. That little impact, have a clear exit strategy. We will work for 1 year. This is the implementing partner. This is the monitoring tools, and this is the impact. At the end of the year, we are going to evaluate it. One more last point from my side would be, I always suggest the corporate take the local administration wherever you're implementing as your partner, because that would not only give you credibility to your program, but it also brings a good partnership between them. So that is a very typical UN approach to be working. So, but I think that brings in better impact, and the gap will become filled,
I think just to add to that point, I think everybody is huddling towards health and education.
Yes.
There's so many other areas which
Absolutely.
need
Absolutely. I
need
think
to-
Absolutely.
so Schedule 7 sort of lists out the subjects that the firms can take up, but health and education are low-hanging fruits.
Yeah, so I think there should be some incentivize the corporates to go into other streams as well.
And no need to
Adding
be
to that.
so, talking very big things. Keep your goals simple, and the solutions are simple. Like, I'll give you one little example. In Vaishno Devi, we gave them a sustainability, it's very small thing we told them. We told their STP was already there, We told that, upgrade this, and that garbage system which was being done, that was being regularly taken, segregated. It was as simple as that, and replace the bulbs, which was with the low energy ones. That is all. So, what I want to say, every little step that you take that reduce the carbon footprints greatly, that will contribute. So that's my
I think
point.
waste is the area they should get in.
Yes.
CSR should get into more into the waste.
Sustainability is another thing.
And one more thing, sorry for the interruption. One more thing is, most of the CS are happening only city. They don't go to the villages at all. But we talk about village, rural areas of backbone of our country. But really, so many NGOs, so many people, they require support of CSR. They're not reaching to that.
Wanted to add to
And
that point after him.
one more thing, the real impact, is, this social impact doesn't happen within over one night. It requires a constant. It's a process oriented, and it is not happening. So it needs the mindset and strategy of the companies to bring impact in the society.
Absolutely. I think we've touched on a lot of points, right? So just to sort of summarize, I
wanted to add to his point. If I'm so sorry,
No
because
problem.
when you mentioned rural, so from what he was mentioning, I wanted to take it from the livelihood side, from the rural livelihood side, where In our early days of CSR, when you see all the CSR is concentrated into Maharashtra, Karnataka, and probably Delhi, so industrial areas. But rural livelihood is where we want to work in. From the farmer standpoint, what we have seen, if we pick up a value chain which is more organized, then it is easier to track and monitoring. You can bring in AIs of the world, you can bring in digital tracking. If it is coffee, if it is cocoa, right? When you pick up a backyard poultry, you have no systems available there. And that is what is giving nutrition to the smallholder farmers. Now, when you look at a smallholder farmer, they do not live on one value chain. They are tenant farmers working in somebody's rice field. They have a few goats, they have a few poultry, and then you're talking about women of that household. That's the majority of our agriculture. That's the actual impact. So how can we find that bring that into a system so that we can track and capture that impact? Because you would have more organized ones where you can leverage on the AIs and the systems and digital systems which are available. But it will not be easy to organizing them. And that's where I think corporate CSR can play a major role. There's a gap out there, because if you bridge that, the rest will follow, rest will crowd in.
I think that's also a place where innovation is required, right? To identify things at the ground where the value chain is not very clearly established. So yeah, makes sense. So yeah, I think we've touched on a lot of points here today. So just to sort of summarize and finally sort of get your inputs on a couple of things. So what do you think the CSR space in itself, or CSR in itself, should be for the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see it going forward? So yeah, let's start with you, Pranjit, and then all of you can give your inputs and we'll close.
And to keep it short, then I think that's a pretty. What I would hope for, that the CSR should also look at the role the smallholder farmers plays in the larger food system, the larger ecosystem, in the larger even for carbon or regenerative ag. What is the role the farmer plays? If they focus on that, then that will help us to solve a lot of problems, because the solution is with them. And the solution is not and the farmers know the solution, but they cannot digitalize it. They are not able to. So how can we identify the sustainably locally led solutions and connect that with a larger solution?
Makes sense. What about you, Ben?
I think from the corporate point of view, I think time has come now to integrate CSR into sustainability. It should not be seen as separate. So how do you integrate it? Not just in strategy, integrate it in the business transformation. Then it becomes much more inclusive, much more connected. Then most of the problems will disappear if you do that.
So there's a need for change in the value system of corporates.
I won't call it value system. It is it's a whole philosophy.
Right.
See, strategy is only one part. It is the whole philosophy of why do I exist? Why does a company exist? So time to change, transform. So if they begin to think from there, things will fall into place and they'll hire better CSR heads.
Align with the UN SDGs. That gives them a clear goal, because they're always searching for goals, right? So if you are talking about health, education, where you are focused on, align with the UN SDGs. That gives them a measuring point, impact measuring, exit. It gives a lot of other credibilities, bonuses come with it. And rest of the 2 points which they have already mentioned, I think these 3 points will go very well with it. Yeah.
What about you, Ben?
So what I feel is CSR, if you want to create some social impact, it's not a campaign, it's a continuous process. So we'll have to embed sustainability into the decision making. Just giving some money and taking the regulatory fulfill the regulatory things of the government or something. So let us see that how best the investment can be made in the communities, and let we community people be a part of the planning for the solution.
I have one small but very fundamental to the whole journey. I think we are a very distrusting society.
Okay. Absolutely.
Okay,
Can't
so companies need to trust the government needs to trust companies needs to trust NGOs need to trust the people, the communities. So there has to be some way trust building needs to happen, and how, I don't have an answer, but that's something to be worked
No,
on.
also, like what I've been thinking is there's a need for a better policy, right? Like there is a law right now. There are compliances which the government is sort of pushing upon the firms, but there's no policy which the government has in terms of CSR. Yes, like she was saying, UN SDG is a goal, but there's no policy per se, like under which all of these are operating. So, I think there's a need for that to sort of come in, and then I think, like he said, trust building needs to happen. Better value chains need to be identified. UN SDGs can be the goalpost, and of course, better involvement, and in terms of donors also, they need to sort of restructure the way they're thinking. So yeah, if we do all of that, I think India and the world will be in a better place.
Absolutely. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.